You don't want to miss out on this episode with Susan M. Parker. We talked about oils and their benefits for your skin. Welcome to Beauty Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Becky, and today we're diving deep into the power of oil with an industry expert who has spent decades researching their impact on skin health. Our guest is Susan M. Parker, author, researcher, and founder of Lipid Oils Academy, where she teaches beauty professionals the science behind natural oils. If you've ever wondered what carrier oils, lipids, and essential fatty acids really do for your skin, you're in for a treat. Today, we'll be busting myths, uncovering skincare secrets, and learning how oils can heal, nourish, and transform your skin. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsor, G-Skin and Beauty Institute, where the next generation of beauty professionals is trained. Let's get started. Welcome, Susan. I'm so excited to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. This is always kind of fun to talk about my favorite subject.
Yeah, I want to dive right in. So you have spent your career researching lipid oils and their impact on skin health. Can you
Yeah.
explain why they're so essential for our skin and how they actually work on our skin?
That's interesting that you start right there because that's been my focus lately. I started as an herbalist and then made skincare products and then started diving into the oils. And then it dawned on me one day. It's like, well, do they do anything? Are we just coating our skin? And so, deep dive into various researchers and different studies and all of that. And what turns out is that the oils that we put on our skin and our skin are made up of almost all of the same fatty acids and types of waxes and squalene and the lipid soluble vitamins and all of that. It's like it's so sympathetic that the plant world, and I really focus primarily on the plant oils and butters, although the new interest in tallow has me kind of intrigued. And I don't know, it's not my kind of preference for my skin, but I'll research anything that's lipid related because it all falls in together. And it turns out, just briefly, the animal fats are not that different than the plant butters, right? They're all saturated, so there's a similarity there. But back to the skin, is it is able to take up, if it's deficient in a lipid compound that you apply topically, it can take it up and make it part of the skin and repair the deficiency. And that to me seems rather key. The fact that um, there's this complete sympathetic relationship between the skin and the natural world. I mean, we are natural, we are part of nature, so
Yeah.
I find it really interesting.
And well, many skincare products contain synthetic ingredients where you focus more on the natural lipids. What makes plant butters and oils different, and how are they more beneficial for our skin compared to synthetic ingredients?
Well, I've always been I was the nut in my family that ate, you know, healthy foods, and this is even before organic foods, right? So my whole family would roll their eyes at me, and I've been at this for my whole, this whole many decades. And so I've never kind of used I don't eat synthetic food, and I wouldn't use it on my skin. That's, personal preference, and I know lots of people train in it and all of that. But um I've been pretty successful using kind of natural compounds just in my own lifestyle, body, skin, and I'll stick with that. I don't really have a an opinion on synthetics skincare and whether it's good or bad because I've never used it. I have no background in esthetician I'm not an esthetician, I was an herbalist. So that's where it's kind of coming, that's where I'm coming from.
Well, that makes sense. You want to keep everything natural on your skin, inside of your body. So the skin's outermost layer is very self-repairing if you give it the right compounds. Can you break this down for us? What oils actually help support this process of self-repairing?
Well, oils in general do, in the fact that as we go through life and as we age, we start to dry up, right? As a teenager, I had very oily skin. I was always scrubbing it and washing and trying to get rid of the oil. Um, and so, but nowadays, excuse me, it's I have very dry skin. And if I don't put on a layer of oil in first thing in the morning, I shower in the morning and I rinse. I don't even use cleansers or anything, but I don't use foundation. So I don't need to, get anything off my skin other than just day to day, kind of whatever's happening in the environment. But I just rinse it well in the shower and then put a layer of oil on and it's really quite a lot of oil while I then drink my coffee and have my breakfast and that sort of thing, get ready for the day. And by the time the day starts, it's all soaked in and um, it, I don't need to do anything again until the next morning when I, start all over. So,
Is there a
um,
difference? You talked about dry skin versus oily skin. Do you suggest using different oils for different skin types, different ages?
seasonally, people who have a outdoor lifestyle versus an indoor lifestyle, I would suggest different types of oil. Um, Oily skin, some of the best remedies for very oily skin that I didn't know as a teenager is more oil, but it's the right type of oil. That's so important. And we have in the oil carrier oil world what's called dry oils, and they're oils that are naturally, they have tannins in them because of the plants that they come from, like camellia or hazelnut. And those types of oils are particularly good for oily skin because the tannin compounds that come through, even though through the whole plant, but in through the seeds and then the oil, the the tannins can help the skin dry up and not and kind of calm the overactive sebaceous glands. The it really is kind of a remedy for very oily skin. Years ago, a woman, I think she was living in Singapore, and she contacted me and the her skin was very oily and she didn't know what to do, and she was already in her 50s. And I'm thinking, this is amazing, that you can have oily skin that late in life. But it was a problem for her. And so I suggested camellia, I think at the time. That's always top of my list. And if you think about camellia, that's the same plant that gives us the green and black tea, right? Camellia sinensis. Anyway, there are huge botanical family, and there's several oils from several varieties of the camellia plant, but they're all quite what we call dry. And what I mean by dry, they're dry feeling on the skin. You put them on and they kind of, the skin takes them up. It's not oily feeling. Some oils are very oily, some are dry feeling, some are kind of thick. I mean, there's so many, and they do so much that I just have keep researching how they're beneficial because I mean some are very antimicrobial and can help with blemishes and that sort of thing, and others are particularly good for aging skin. That's obviously a question I get quite a bit. What do I do? I've got wrinkles and my skin's getting old. What's a good formula for um anti-aging, which, aging is good. We're lucky
Yeah,
if we get to
there's nothing wrong with that.
nothing wrong with it. But we don't need to look like we're, going on 150 either. So,
Well, it's interesting that you say that there's different oils that are anti-aging, antimicrobial. How do you choose what oil is best for you?
yeah, that's what I teach.
Okay.
Because there's, well, the top of my, I know, camellia was the top of my list for a dry oil. For anti-aging, the top of my list is pomegranate seed, because pomegranate seed is a really kind of unique oil. It's had one is kind of fun. It has its very own fatty acid. Basically, when I teach, my foundation courses are the basics of saturated fatty acids and unsaturated fatty acids, and what does that mean, the different double bonds and all of that. And basically, there's five fatty acids that show up in almost every oil in some percentage, whether a large percentage or just a trace amount, but they're always there. But the thing with pomegranate seed, and the reason it's so unique, it has its own fatty acid that is particular, it gets into a little bit complicated uh, fatty acid chemistry, because the fatty acids are able to twist, and this twisting action of them is what makes the oil feel so rich and viscous, and which is kind of counterintuitive because the actual fatty acids are highly unsaturated, but they have this shape that a lot of others don't. All that to say that these fatty acids are excellent for kind of helping older skin thicken, great on supporting the collagen level of, helping support collagen and the rebuilding of collagen. And that's another question we get all the time. What about collagen? How do I not lose my collagen? And of course, you don't lose it, but you need to keep it healthy. You need to keep it being rebuilt. And the way to do that is giving the body natural compounds that it knows. And I suppose to go back to the synthetic compounds, our body doesn't know them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They made somewhere else, and they're not part of our whole natural world and natural forms. We are natural forms as much as, well, who knows? But if we maintain the body with what it knows and is familiar to it in terms of food and what we put on it, it's more likely to be able to rebuild itself, and keep push that aging back a little bit.
Well, you talk so much about essential fatty acids. Why does our skin crave them so much?
Because our skin makes them. The one, the well, there's only two technically essential fatty acids, but one of them, this linoleic acid, is a part of the ceramide structure of the outer layer of skin. Out of the stratum corneum is half fats and half uh, um, corneocytes, they're called, which are skin cells. But those skin cells are held together kind of like a brick wall is, with kind of a mortar. And the mortar are waxy lipid compounds, fatty acids, cholesterol, squalene, and certain fatty acids are just part of that mix. And so this skin is able to, if it doesn't have some of these fatty acids that it also makes. And of course, as I said, as we dry up over time, the we can replenish the fatty acids that our skin makes, and the lipid compounds. Not all of them are fatty acids, of course. So that gets a little wonky, down in the weeds.
But yeah, so you would suggest one oil for somebody younger versus one oil for somebody older that needs a little bit of that boost in the essential fatty acids. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And what I've found, I'm pretty lucky with my skin and my health, I can kind of put anything on and I don't really pay attention. I have a whole lot, in my bathroom and I just pick one in the morning. But some people, and I've kind of researched this through my large Facebook group, is some people's skin prefers a monounsaturated fatty acid like oleic acid, and other people's skin don't do well with that fatty acid and do much better with a more polyunsaturated group of oils, with linoleic acid and alpha linolenic acid. And so what everybody really needs to find is what their skin tolerates. Some people are just super sensitive and they have to be quite careful about what they use. Others are luckier and can try a combination. But usually facial oils are a combination and what I do is I teach that there's a foundation for um your facial oil. Let's say there's foundation oils that have a lot of the basics, and then you can bring in, like, some oils are extremely red or extremely green, and all of that means something. The red oils are wonderful because it's quite a lot of beta carotene, which is highly antioxidant, and it supports our skin, um the antioxidant action in our skin. Oils contain tocopherols naturally, unless it's refined away. And so when we put all these compounds on our skin, the skin just can drink it up and support itself while it goes through its own processes. I and it's kind of funny. At this point, I know quite a lot about all the fatty acids and the oils and the different structures, and it's quite fun. And lately, I've been particularly interested in how the oils kind of affect the skin. And it's so much like on the internet, people will say, well, anything you put on your skin is going to be in your bloodstream in 20 minutes. And it's like, no, that's not what the skin does. It's definitely a barrier. It's the barrier function, the stratum corneum, that outermost layer is the barrier function for our whole body to hold us in. And so we need to protect it, but at the same time, we can treat deeper layers of the skin, like the collagen layer, which is in the middle, by how and what we use on our skin. And so that's just brand new research to me about signaling molecules and enzymes, that so that when you put something on the outside of your skin, it talks to the inner layers. And so I can't speak deeply on that because but it's new, but it's there and it's really happening. A couple of years ago, I had an herbalist friend who contacted me, and because she teaches infusing herbs into oils, it was just that's where I got started, infusing herbs into oils. And she said, I have this student and she wants to know how our infused oils can do so much good on the skin if the skin doesn't take it in. And so that's what started this whole interest of mine. Well, what is the skin doing? And then finding signaling molecules that talk to each other and all of that. And it's really kind of how I work. I mean, I like people to ask me questions because that then leads to the next point of study, really. So
Yeah, so you're saying the oils don't fully penetrate in deep into the skin. How far do they go if you apply a carrier oil to your skin? Is it just the outermost layer, but you also said it
yeah,
affects the collagen
outermost,
as well?
not to the collagen, really. They're
Okay.
big molecules. All okay. This is many, like basic chemistry of oils. Oils are 98% fatty acids. Fatty acids are, well, 98% fatty acids, but those fatty acids are formed as triglycerides. You hear about triglycerides in the diet and all. But a triglyceride is, and I always do this, is three fatty acids on a glycerol molecule. And that's what oils are these triglycerides, and with lots, and triglycerides can have same fatty acids, different fatty acids. That's a whole other thing. But the oil is mostly these large compounds, and that's why they're quite different than the essential oils. Essential oils are very small, volatile compounds. They evaporate. You spill essential oil on a piece of paper, and you look at that paper tomorrow and it's gone. But you spill oil on the piece of paper and it's oily forever. Um, a lipid oil. And so the oils affect the very top layer of skin, but then we have to, I think what I'm getting at is that that top layer of skin with the right compounds on it, that it doesn't have to fight off or repair because maybe too much was done, too much sun or wounding. Then it can talk to deeper layers. It's all connected. I mean, we don't they're layers only in that they kind of change form. But if you think of the skin cells, they form down at the very lowest level of the um, very bottom. Right? The it's not coming to mind. The lowest level of skin cells begin down where the lymph and the blood and all of that is, and they moves up into the dermal layer and then into the epidermis, and then the most outermost layer of the epidermis is the stratum corneum, and the stratum corneum is where the oils are, but then that doesn't mean that there's no effect deeper. I think that's where the body takes over and says, we'll take some of that, we'll take some of this, and the rest of it can be a nice protective layer so we don't lose too much moisture. The whole aspect of TOOL, trans epidermal water loss. And I've had to kind of gain all this kind of the language of the esthetician. And I do have some friends who are estheticians going to help me with this, thank goodness. And but the a kind of a short course I did recently for our membership, the skin barrier function is dependent on the skin not losing excess moisture. And that's one the probably the first argument for using oils and butters on the skin. But when the skin starts to lose moisture, all these actions happen in order to, and I'm still kind of vague on exactly what happens because I don't have a science background, so I'm kind of feeling my way as I go. But it's really important that the skin not lose um, excess moisture in this. That's what the tool is called. And I had my friend who's an esthetician, and she helps me research stuff, and she helped me kind of get this, that the stratum corneum is the barrier function of the skin, and keeping that healthy is really primary to our health of our whole body, but then also of the skin and the deeper layers.
Well, and I think there's a lot of common misconceptions about oils being clogging on the skin rather than just keeping it in its best form. It actually can clog it and cause acne, cause breakouts. Could you talk a little bit on that of why it doesn't do
Yeah,
that?
definitely. I think, okay, I don't have problem with oils clogging, any kind, saturated, unsaturated, doesn't matter. Um, when I wrote my book, Power of the Seed, people were really upset with me because I didn't put in that comedogenic, I always trip on that word, that pore clogging list that people, it's all over the internet. And so, because I just hadn't run into that problem, I'm not an esthetician. It's not really a thing that I think about. And so I went to my large Facebook group, which was several, I don't know, thousand at the time. And I said, okay, guys, talk to me about pore clogging oils. What do you find? Because people had sent me these lists where they have 1 to 5 different categories of pore clogging. And so I dutifully took this and I had category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I put all the oils in each category, and there was made no sense. It didn't correspond to level of saturation, didn't correspond to type of fatty acids. It didn't correspond to anything. So that's when I went to my Facebook group and said, what's going on? What do you find clogs your pores? How do you deal with that? And all the answers I got back were that everybody was different, basically. And so some people could use rosehip seed oil, some people couldn't use coconut, some people couldn't use something else, and back and forth. And there was no consensus. There was no like, this is pore clogging and that isn't. It really depended on the person and their skin. And so that's what I teach now, that it really is an issue of the person's skin, not the oil. The oil, what might really be a problem for some people, and in that case, definitely don't use it. Find a better oil that is suited to your skin. But your neighbor, your daughter, your cousin might be fine with that oil. So that is, I know everybody wants to, assign pore clogging, and I don't go there. So,
Well,
because it didn't make sense. There was no relationships.
yeah, and it's good to know that you teach that in your Lipids Oil Academy, to teach the formulations for beauty professionals, for just the average person as well. What is one piece of knowledge from your research that you wish everyone knew about oils?
How great they are for the skin, really. I mean, and what I find fascinating, coming out of as a plant person, out of the plant world, what I've found, because you asked me about just try them. Try apricot, try almond, try jojoba, try, this morning I used baobab, and then there's all the oils from the South America. I have a friend who imports oils from South America. She has a whole business from Brazil. And those are wonderful. And then another friend in Africa who works with the African oils, and of course, in every region has its own oils. So, probably, okay, you asked me what my suggestion would be. Probably pick an oil that is relates to where you live. If you live in India, you're might pick a very different oil than I might. Okay, so I'm in the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, and just down the road, a couple of years ago, my daughter, who's helps me in my business, we went. She is the technical aspect of this business. We just drove about an hour south, and there was meadow foam seed oil. Now, meadow foam seed oil is another really interesting oil. It has extra long carbon chains in those fatty acids, right? So the extra long carbon chains, one, they're super antioxidant and they protect the skin. And because they're extra long, they're very soft and cushiony, the fatty acids. The meadow foam seed oil is not an oil that we use as food, right? A lot of them are olive and sesame, coconut, avocado, macadamia, you know, lots of different oils we can use in the kitchen as well. That's what these are, these lipid oils. Meadow foam seed oil and jojoba as well. They're similar and they have these super long chain fatty acids. They were originally developed for industry, for lubrication of machinery, because they don't dry. So then we have so these are oils that kind of hold up really well to time and heat and light. They have this long shelf life. And then maybe their opposite are the supplement oils like flaxseed oil or hemp seed oil. And those go rancid rather quickly. And so there's this whole range of long, oils that really hold up over time, oils that have a very short shelf life. You wouldn't use those in a piece of machinery. The whole thing would gum up immediately. All right. It's just, and it's interesting how, and then From industry, jojoba and meadowflower made their way into skincare, and they are really marvelous oils, excellent for back to aging because of this ability to really protect. And then they also mimic some of those fatty acids and those compounds that make up our outer layer of skin. So the more we can supplement the outer layer of skin with wholesome kind of related lipid compounds, we do better. It's works well. So
And where would you suggest people source these oils? How do you know that it's something that you want to purchase versus you don't want to purchase in terms of the quality of the oils?
oftentimes what I'll tell, people who are brand new to the idea, just go to the grocery store. There's avocado, there's sesame, but don't get the toasted. Right, you don't want that strong smell. Sometimes for cooking, oils are toasted for flavor. Keep those in the kitchen. But the non-toasted versions, I've seen almond oil, jojoba over in the body care section. That's a great place to start because you can buy small bottles and try lots of different ones. And then in my big Facebook group or my Facebook groups and my courses, I do have a sources list, and it has lots of good sources, and it's pretty much worldwide at this point. And people I can direct you in the States to good sources, and then other people have sent information for the UK and Europe.
Well, and
I
yeah,
think we have
you talked about them
two-
being sourced from all over,
every
and so I didn't know if there was just a good central location that anybody could get the oils that they want for their
no,
skin.
there's some really great suppliers, but then you don't want them to pay shipping sometimes and availability and stuff. Yeah, there's lots of I've made up a database of the oils that I've been working with, and it's probably up to 180 different oils at this point.
Wow.
There's most people would think, oh, well, fractionated coconut and some jojoba and I'm good, and that's fine. But there's such a wealth of information. And then there's new oils. I talked about the meadowfoam being relatively new to skincare, but there's also what's called zero waste oils. And what happens when you have a large agricultural area, and not that far from where I am, up in Washington, there's massive amounts of raspberries grown, and so there's a family, it's a company up here who takes all the waste after the juice has been removed and anything they want to use for the food product, and they take this pomace and separate the seeds and produce an absolutely beautiful raspberry seed oil, which is very light and incredibly delicate and very nourishing for the skin. So, like I said, it's the largeness of the subject keeps me busy.
And I kind of want to go back to when you were talking about how oils can get rancid. How do you properly store your oils? Does it make a difference of the color of bottle, if they're in glass or plastic, if they have light exposure? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Light is the first element that will oxidize oil. Light, heat, air, and then time. So light, heat, and air we can control. Cool and dark. Some oils like the flax and hemp that I mentioned as supplements, those really want to be stored in the fridge. Butters, everything needs to be cool and dark because heat light will affect them. Some oils just have a longer shelf life. Oils like evening primrose and borage, those those go off pretty quickly. Flax goes hemp, whereas meadow foam can last up actually a couple of years. And then there's everything in the middle. There's 6 months to a year, but oils aren't really something you want to, if you're really manufacturing a lot, you might want to stock up on 5 gallon tubs, or, I mean, depending on how big your business is, 55 gallon drums. I've never gotten that big, but 5 gallons at a time. And as long as it's stored cool and away from light, most oils, especially the monounsaturated that have the longest shelf life of the liquid oils, they'll hold up pretty well. And then as you get more and more specialty, more and more polyunsaturated, then refrigerators are good, or a a cave is excellent, right? A cave in the earth or a good basement, dark basement area. When I used to make skincare products, herbal products, I worked down in it's a daylight basement. It was perfect because it was dark if I wasn't there and down kind of in the earth. So it stayed cool all the time. I mean, my olive oil down there was very viscous. I'd have to slowly pour it out to make a batch of soap.
Well, it's kind of like I have castor oil at home and it's in a dark, dark glass bottle. And I've always read that that's what it needs to be kept in to stay good, to stop it from going rancid.
That's going to help, certainly. It's going to extend it for sure. And it sometimes it's a shame. One time, because the colors are so beautiful, I made a whole bunch of 1 ounce clear bottles just so I could see all the colors and have them all labeled and stuff. But they'd be awful now.
Yeah.
Except some of them still have their color. But sometimes the color will disappear, which is the oxidation happening, like to the red oils. So.
Well, I was going to ask, how do you know that they're rancid? Is it the smell? Is it the color of it? The consistency of it?
They'll smell kind of cardboardy or flat or like old crayons, or sometimes I have my students because there's all this brain knowledge about fatty acids and this and that and you can get so stuck up there, but I really try to emphasize that using it on your skin all the time, and then especially so using it on dry skin, using oils on wet skin, and it's quite interesting. It's a completely different experience on wet skin, like at the end of your shower or the end of your bath, just putting it on and feel how it is on the skin and get to know it that way. So if an oil has gone bad, it's going to start to grab on the skin and kind of not you can't move your hands smoothly across it. It's already started to gum up a little. Sometimes the smell is just kind of funky and off. In fact, yesterday I've been making soap, small batches of soap to use up stuff, and I came across a mango butter it was hard. I had to throw it. It just was too smelly and too gummy. And
What's the difference between a butter and an oil? Is it just the consistency of it? Is it how it's made and produced?
The butters are made up of primarily saturated fatty acids. Saturated fatty acids are, oh, I do. Saturated fatty acids are straight. They don't have a double bond in them. Where on a fatty acid that isn't straight, there's a double bond and then the fatty acid bends. Okay. Some of that bending is the fatty acids pushing away from each other to make liquid oils. A butter is primarily, probably upwards of at least 60% of these straight fatty acids. And so this is like a solid mass. It doesn't bend, it's a butter. And then when you get into oils like olive oil or camellia, the monounsaturated oils, there's a single double bond. So it bends a little, and that creates this liquidity. And then ultimately, some fatty acids have 2, 3, 4, up to 5 or 6 double bonds. Those are a little kind of obscure, but they quite kink, and it makes it even more liquid. But every time I can use my knuckles for double bonds. The double bonds is where oxygen attaches, right? So that's where it goes rancid. So the butter should hold up. Mangoes it doesn't hold up as well as, like, let's say this is a little block of cocoa butter that I've probably had for over 10 years. I know that because, and it's so hard and it's so saturated, it just keeps going.
Yeah,
It gets a little white on the surface, which is some oxidation, but it's not yucky. So
yeah. Could I see that a little bit better? Go ahead and go to the right just a little bit.
The white bit. Oh, sorry. I have two images of myself on the screen.
That's perfect.
Why am I I having such a hard time with this? Anyway, it's a very hard piece of cocoa butter, and it holds up really well. Mango, not so much. That the one I had to throw away yesterday should have been in the refrigerator. So
And is that something that softens with heat, like from your hands, if you're going to apply it to your skin?
cocoa butter, and well, depending on the level of saturation, and see, because every oil has a different melt point, and even the fatty acids have different melt points. So you put them all together, and then another point is that all no oil is 100% any one fatty acid. They all have saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated, and it has to do with the proportions. So olive oil is about 75% monounsaturated, oleic acid. And then it has a little bit of polyunsaturated and a little bit of saturated. And like in a monounsaturated oil, saturated fatty acids are going to give it kind of body. So it's not too, so it just has something to it. And then polyunsaturated are the oils that soak in more deeply because of this. They're lighter, they're a smaller molecular size. They're not as heavy. Lots of different combinations.
Yeah. For someone who is wanting to just get started and dive deep into the world of oils, where's the first place for them to start?
I did well, kind of what got me started in being so focused on oils is I had a book that oops. Um and that's what got me started. Originally I had done some little pamphlets, and then over the years I eventually was able to do a proper book, and a lot of people like it. It has a lot of really basic information, but the book is 10 years old. So if you just want to get started, the books is a great place to start. And then we have courses, we have memberships, and you can, even if you go to my name, susanmparker.com, it'll lead you eventually to where the courses and the membership. And we have lots of free blogs and lots of stuff in terms of getting started, and then kind of go from there. And we have very in-depth courses. The first course I did in 2018, it started off as a really kind of basic introductory course, and then I kept adding to it and adding to it, and now it's just this massive lipid deep dive. But we still have but I've gone back and done kind of introductory courses that kind of lead people in before get an idea of what it is they might want to work with.
And what would you suggest is the best starter oil? If someone wanted to go out today after listening to this and buy one oil, what would you suggest for them?
That's a Sophie's choice. Okay, start wherever you live, so maybe like there's sunflower oil, there's almond oil, apricot kernel, jojoba. I don't think I can do one. I mean, I think I have to acknowledge the wealth of what's out there. So one would be hard, but there's lots of nice, just gentle oils to get started with. And then, when you're ready to get down in the weeds, we're ready for you. So,
Well, and would you suggest someone starting with like a dry oil or something a little bit heavier? Would it be best to start with something? I don't know. I feel like a dry oil would be on the safer side of oils before you get into the super
what?
like thick
That's
oils.
I see what you're saying. Well, lots of people don't like the feeling of oil on their skin. And that is something to kind of overcome, because your skin is oil. It's fatty acids and cholesterol and all these waxes that hold us in and hold us together. And and that is what is so will receive the fatty acids of any oil. So a dry oil is good if you can find. Camellia is a bit of it's a little bit harder to find. You're not going to find it in a natural food store so much, but hazelnut would be a good dry oil. It might smell a bit nutty. It kind of depends on the refining process, and that's a whole other. From very crude oils can be dark and needing some attention to come to become skincare oils. But some just need a little filtering, like the raspberry seed. We were able to go and see it being actually pressed, from these tiny little raspberry seeds and then pressing the oil. And the little jar I took home, I still have it. It still has a kind of a bunch of particulate matter, plant matter at the bottom, and then the top is all, it's been filtered down over the years. Basically, go to your local natural food store and either look in the cooking section and don't get toasted, or go to the body care section and find one of those oils. Jojoba's nice. People love jojoba. It's a great oil. It's a liquid wax technically, but we don't need to worry about that.
Well, thank you again, Susan, for coming on. I'm so lucky to be able to talk to you today, and I really appreciate you taking your time to talk with us.
Well, I'm happy to be here and happy to help people understand how wonderful the oils are for their skin.
Yeah, well, this conversation was packed with knowledge, and a huge thank you to Susan M. Parker for sharing her expertise on carrier oils and their incredible benefits for our skin. Whether you're new to oils or a skincare expert, today's episode gave us so much to think about. If you loved this conversation and want to learn out more, check out Lipid Oils Academy for deeper insights into formulating with natural oils. And of course, a huge shout out to our sponsor, G Skin and Beauty Institute, where future beauty professionals are learning the science behind skincare every day. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media for more beauty content. Until next time, stay glowing and keep learning.